I wish I'd hit record sooner than I did.
Don't we all? Don't we all?
I wish I had, because we were talking... Listeners, you missed what could only be described as podcast gold. I talked about wanking, so it was already a winner.
I think we can recapture the magic pretty easily. I think we can get back there.
Yeah, because it honestly... The thing that got us there does deserve talking about, because Jesus Christ...
Yeah.
That company that owes you money is taking the piss.
Yeah, so I'll lead us in with, like, the on-air friendly version. There's a company that owes me money, that's no secret. They have recently done some legal shenanigans. It's not that hard to find out more if you want to do so by looking online. The short version: the company that owes me money no longer exists. A new company that is basically identical now exists that doesn't owe me money. Because, in short, oh no, we've slightly changed the focus of the business, so we're a different business, so we can just, the debt can live over there, and we can be basically the same but do one different thing and not owe you the money.
Like, it sounds like it shouldn't be legal. It sounds so dodgy, but if that's how it works, right, to get out of my own debts, I have decided my name is now Sandra Biscuits.
Mm-hmm.
I also have pivoted to a brand new direction. I was going to have a wank tomorrow. I'm not anymore. I'm going to hold off. Now, Laura,
but
is that legally enough to get me off the hook if I'm not getting off in general?
No. It's not enough to get you off the hook, as I understand it, unless you permanently pivot the business.
Right.
So you've got to pivot completely. This has got to be a permanent change for Sandra. This is where we're getting to.
Sandra Biscuits for a wankless tomorrow. Essentially, prime yourselves for the gold, listeners. I have to declare bankruptcy. And there we are.
Still good.
Podcast
there you
award
go.
In the bag.
There we go. I definitely had the same energy the second time around.
I can assure you, listeners, Laura and Conrad laughed when I said it last time.
We did,
There's no recorded evidence of that.
There's another pun that immediately preceded that I think I liked more, but I can't remember what it was now. Oh, well. Lost forever.
So yeah, it turns out it is remarkably easy to just say "nah" to debt and put on a fake moustache and pretend to be someone else.
When I say it's for a wankless tomorrow, I've got to leave myself a clause here, right? I am just talking about hand stuff. I will remain in arrears. Don't make no mistake about that. There we are.
There we go.
There we are.
All right, brought it back. Found more gold.
Not brought it back. Not brought it back because I need to. The only reason it seemed like it wasn't there and needed bringing back is because you were already so laughed out.
Right, exactly.
You'd already guffawed yourselves empty. I need the listeners to understand that what I said was very funny.
Wankruptcy was maybe the funniest thing you've ever said on this show, let's be fair. It
not
might
a lot
be
of
your best
competition,
joke.
to be honest. But, had my colleagues backed me up, I think it would have gone over
I applauded.
really well.
I don't know if it carried over Zoom. I gave you a good clap for wankruptcy.
Like
there
the story.
You'll
hear it in the
edit.
edit.
We'll have to go to the tape on that. But honestly, though, that company, that is so wrong. Like, in jokes aside, that is you just saying the company that owed you money doesn't exist anymore. It is us, but we've changed our name and we've decided that we're now a company that won't pay you. That's our business plan.
They're the same company enough that they didn't have to ask before just moving my contract from the old company to the new company. They're enough of the same company that the contract just kind of moved over. But yeah, it's great when money that I have earned, that is mine, gets stolen away and then lost, and then gets presented as a nice goodwill thing they're going to give to me, and not my money that they stole.
And make no mistake, everything I've heard and read about this tells me it was theft. They owed you money, they gambled it on ventures, and then lost it.
That does seem to be the situation from publicly available information.
Now, I've been in scenarios where someone borrowed my money and planned to give it back, but the last I checked, borrowing without asking isn't actually a thing and never has been. It is, in fact, theft.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like borrowing my money without asking and then not being able to give it back to me is theft a little bit.
Yeah, like, indistinguishable to the naked eye, or indeed any microscope that has ever been made.
Well, let's see if that money ever materializes.
The name isn't even all that different.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Can I say the names?
If you want to
It's
say
a
the
matter of
names,
public
go
record, can't I? Yeah.
ahead. Yeah.
You can't, if your company is called Unbound, you can't just change it to Boundless.
It's not bound to without bounds,
Yeah.
essentially. It is another way of saying without being bound,
And I
isn't
mean,
it?
in a way, both names are correct, because they sure as shit haven't bound themselves by any of their legal agreements.
And look, I'll say this. If they didn't want me to acknowledge any of this, they could have paid me 3-4 months ago.
Well, yeah.
Fucking 4 months. They could have paid me 4 months ago if they didn't want me saying anything.
I do, and this is just a bit of legal advice to anyone listening, right? If you don't want to be accused of theft, don't steal. That's the quickest way. In general. Unbelievable.
I have to say this, and I'm sorry that I have to say this in light of, it's harder to say when faced directly with a victim of it, but there is a part of me that does admire the chutzpah, like, of just changing to that name that's so close. Like, I hope they get railed for it, but
It really is, we take one step to the left and go, where am I now?
It is a bold move, Cotton.
Yeah. The sheer shamelessness. It is going to bite them in the arse, though, because
I hope so.
They fucked over so many people.
I won't get into the specifics, but there are people fucked over in worse ways than I by this, and any goodwill that had been accrued by that company, I do not think is going to stick around, and I just hope I see that money.
Yeah, I do think that keeping the name and everything so close to the thing that is now fucking mud in publishing will bite them in the arse, and I hope it does. They absolutely deserve to first pay off their debts and then fucking tank.
Welcome to Podquisition,
Welcome.
the best podcast for finding out about publishing industry nonsense. Who's played video games this week?
I've played some video games this week. What about you, Steffi? Have you played some video games this week?
I've played a couple.
Yeah?
I've got like 2.
Yeah, I got
Who's
2.
over you, Conrad? What you been playing?
You just want me to talk more about Wanderstop. That's what's happening here.
I mean, I am very curious to hear you talk about Wanderstop. I'm curious how you got on with it.
So, I am conflicted.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm
That's fair.
I'm very conflicted with this game. Off the jump, the writing's phenomenal.
Yeah. To be expected, I think, of Davey Reed.
Yeah, and the characters are so good. I adore Boro. The relationships that you start to develop with the various customers that come to the tea shop they're all interesting. There's something to like about every one of them. They're charming, and
Yeah.
they make me happy.
I'm a big fan, for example, of the knight whose leg is clearly developing a curse that is slowly creeping up it, and he just refuses to acknowledge it's a problem.
I knew you'd love Gerald. I knew
Look,
Gerald
yeah.
would be, your type of person.
I can certainly empathize with person ignoring physical health ailments and just hoping they'll go away.
Yeah.
My tooth feels fantastic, by the way.
Oh, good.
By the way, yeah.
Oh, yeah. The hole just completely sealed itself.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Excellent.
As it do.
I'm less into Alta as a character.
Hmm.
I don't want to reveal any spoilers. I'm reserving judgment. I'm not thrilled. I think I'm at about the midpoint of the game. And, or maybe even a little closer to the end than that. I get the feeling that this game represents a year in its structure.
Yeah. And are you in the third season, as it were? Or are you a little further?
One of the seasons is noticeably shorter than the others.
Okay, yeah.
Right? And I'm past that noticeably shorter season and into the one that follows. So I feel like there's probably one more past this.
Yeah.
That's the sort of sense I'm getting.
That's about where I am at currently, yeah.
And at this point in the narrative for me, I'm curious to see where the story with Alta is going, but I don't particularly like it. What is afflicting, I guess, the character is the most vague way I can describe it. Almost feels like, at this point, an opportunity to dodge accountability and responsibility, which I'm sure they will resolve, but at this point in the story just makes me feel a way that I'm not into.
I can get that. I feel a little differently, but I can totally see it, in as much as I think we can talk about early on, the story is very much of someone so burned out that physically they can do nothing but stop and take a beat. And definitely as this goes on, her relationship with that, as she sits with it, is not initially being healthily processed. And as I see it, she's getting worse before she's getting better.
Well, she's essentially going, and I think it's safe to say this even at the early going, she's clearly undergoing an identity crisis.
Yeah.
And how that is conveyed, I'm just not sold on, is I guess where I'm at with that.
I have faith that it's going to steer through it, but I don't know how much of that is just because I already know the writer's work and trust it to get pulled through.
Yeah. The thing that I thought would bother me about it, the sort of directionless, not necessarily lack of clear objectives, but just sort of periods of lack of objectives, has not been an issue for me at all. I find it's pretty brisk. I find there's always something minor for me to be doing in the short periods that are occupying, waiting for something to happen. So I don't really get that sense of downtime, to the point where I never stopped to take a break to have tea until this most recent season. And I was basically saying, okay, I'll just do this now. And I do think those tea breaks are really interesting.
Yeah.
Where I come into conflict with this game, I think, is that lack of sort of clear objective sometimes, it reflects how I want life to be. And it's how I try to live my life, in part out of necessity, almost as a defense mechanism.
Yeah. Because
I live in chaos. For a number of reasons. Not merely because I live in the United States and but my life, since I began work as a self-employed individual, and you will no doubt relate to this, life is a series of not really knowing with certainty that the next month's going to be okay, right?
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, you have to accept that and roll with it. And take things as they come, make adjustments as necessary, and for God's sake, don't freak out.
Yeah.
And that's what this game is.
Yeah.
I hate to say this, because it's wild. As I always complain, well, I don't always complain, but I do think that there is something sort of frustrating and trite about the argument that games are supposed to be escapism. And here I am making it now, by saying that, well, for me, the escapism is that the rules are clearly defined and I understand them. So anyway, that's
Yeah, I get that.
And it's not a bad game either. None of this is to say I'm not enjoying the experience.
No.
But it is not what I want out of a video game.
I'm glad that I was right in my instinct that gameplay loop-wise, this wouldn't frustrate you in the same way as that game you were playing the previous week that I've forgotten the name of.
One Lonely Outpost.
One Lonely Outpost, yeah. I, as someone in a similar position to you as another freelance person, one game like this is a novelty.
Mm-hmm.
I would not want this to be all games I played for very similar reasons to you. But I can certainly appreciate this one as someone who had to learn the hard way how to make this kind of space for myself.
Mm-hmm.
It is nice to explore a story that feels like it gets that. While I do understand that, yeah. It's an interesting game for sure, and one that I want to see through, but that I am deliberately not rushing to see through. That I want I don't have other stuff to be doing time to sit back down and get back to it.
I thought I would be annoyed by the process of making tea. The tea-making apparatus. And apparatus is the only word I can use to that really describes what this thing is. Moving around it and climbing up and down the ladder and doing the little steps, I was like, I'm going to find this tedious really soon. And oddly, that has not become the case. There is something meditative about that process and the steps in it, and it doesn't take... If it took any longer, if it had one more step, but it's been fine.
I like that none of the steps feels like it takes more than 5 to 10 seconds at most, that it's all part of this sort of spiral that largely goes from top to bottom doing a sort of anti-clockwise spiral, and that it all just... It feels way more natural than a thing that complicated visually should to operate.
Yeah.
And it's nice that, you do your one little step and then, some colour changes and it swirls around and it's just about getting where it needs to be by the time you get round to where the next step is. It's nicely meditative in a way that it feels counterintuitive that it would.
And at the same time, there's the mechanic for the overflow, where when you produce more tea than is necessary, it overflows, or you can drain it out into the drain, and it feeds the tree.
Yeah.
And the tree
get little colourful flowers.
Right. And I know Boro told me that this is a good thing, and that, it's everything, blah, 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 whatever. It's a catalog of my failure to make precisely the accurate amount of tea, and I have to see it every time I'm making tea.
That's fascinating. I do not feel the same at all, but I get it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, the alternative, Conrad, would be drink the remainder of the tea you made rather than pour it down the drain.
Well, I almost never... It just frustrates me because it's always just that little bit that spills over the top. I'm so close, but I never get a perfect cup. Oh, well. But, yeah, I do think it's a very interesting game. I think that it's worthy of inspection and curiosity. The planting mechanics are kind of fun.
Yeah, I like the little hybridizing and the keeping a little booklet of what you've made.
And the way that expands over time is interesting into other elements, yeah.
I like that it gives just enough of a hint of what you need to do to make the next thing, while still leaving a little room for being surprised by it.
Yep. Yeah. There's a lot good in Wanderstop, and it's a very interesting product.
What about you, Steph? What have you been playing this week?
So, I'll tell you what, I'll give you the lead up to this. It was an internal discussion I had that led me to the game I'm currently playing. The other day, my autism said to me, Stephanie, bitch, wake up. You care about Medabots now. And I said,
Yeah.
sorry, autism. You're going to have to run that one by me again. Medabots, that's what you care about now. Right. Do you mean that cartoon that was background noise when I would get ready for school 25 years ago? Yep. You remember the little yellow robot? Vaguely.
I remember the little yellow robot.
Yeah.
I could have told you that was a Medabot if you showed me it, probably.
That was about
that one that was on the art.
Up until a couple of days ago, that's all I'd have been able to tell you as well. Yeah, so the Medabots anime was literally that. It was background noise when I would get ready for school in the morning. It would play along with, like, the Monster Rancher cartoon and the Digimon
God, Monster
one.
Rancher, yeah.
I loved the Monster Rancher cartoon. And I was, like, an adult. By the time that came around.
Here's the thing. I actually do feel like I'd enjoy the Monster Rancher one, because I do remember a bit about it. I do remember enough that I would sit and watch it.
The Monster Rancher one was the closest to the vibe of a Boglin that any of the creature collecting animes got.
Well, certainly that one big eye fella.
Suezo.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. It is so flagrantly, trying to pull the Pokemon, right? It was like, we're going to recreate Pokemon with this thing. And Suezo is the Pikachu. And that's absurd.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous.
He is so unappealing as a lead mascot for a franchise.
You don't want a leery eyeball on a stalk.
That is what makes him awesome.
Yep.
But yes, Medabots.
So yeah, Medabots. I did check out a bit of the anime, because most people in the West would be surprised to know that it's spun off from a game series. When it used to play decades ago, I had assumed that's what it was, because it was airing around that same block. Monster Rancher, Digimon, Pokemon, and Medabots would play. So I'm like, oh, it's another one. That Meta Bee looks cute. I don't know why he's called that. He doesn't look like a bee. Now, decades later, I'm like, oh, it's short for beetle. Oh, that makes sense because of the head. So I'm glad that mystery that I never cared about, because I didn't care about Medabots until a few days ago. I have been watching some of the anime. It's surprisingly good.
Yeah.
It's fucking funny. Like, it's just funny. Yeah, the voice, localization dub, the voice they give to Metabee is fucking brilliant. I do recommend people check clips out of it, because I don't know if he's on script sometimes, because it sounds like he's interjecting in between people's lines. like they just let the actor do his own thing, but it's shockingly good. Not great as a, anime TM kind of, I'm going to sit down and watch something really well crafted. It's just, this is really dumb and funny. So I do recommend it. It's all on like YouTube and that. But one of the reasons a lot of people only know it as an anime is because barely anything got localized outside of that. So there are all these Medabots games, and a handful. I think out of the mainline ones, only the one that I'm talking about today made it across beyond like fan translations. And it's Medabots Core, a remake of as they call the series in Japan is called Medarot, and so this is a remake of Medarot 2 with a lot of visuals added in to evoke the anime, which makes sense. In fact, some of the upgraded Medabots that was in Medabot 2, upgraded from Medabot 1, in the localized remake, they take the upgrades out and replace them with the original Medabot 1 robots, because they're the ones in the anime. So I've been playing this, and it's interesting. Like, I just expected a robot Pokemon. That's what I expected. And while there is an element of that, the battle system is unique, and the method by which you are getting your little robots together is something I'm probably going to really like when I'm not in the early game, which is full of a lot of mean-spiritedness. it's fucking hard, is this game. But, how to describe it even? So, you have a team of 3 Medabots. I've only got 2 at the moment, because you need different components. First, you need a medal, which is why they're called Medabots. The medal is their brain, and that has its own personality and, well, lore-wise, its own personality, but what that translates to in a game is a certain affinity for different body types, like body part types. In order to use the medal, you need what's called a tin pet, which is basically a robot skeleton. And that's what you put the parts onto. So I've only got 2 at the moment because I've got like 5 medals, but only 2 tin pets, and then a whole bunch of parts. And I've got my starter, which is obviously Metabee, and I can swap all his parts out if I want, but it does seem to me that finding a complete set with a medal that works for them is going to be the best bet. Can't do that with my second one, which is a horrific Frankenstein's monster at the moment, with hover tank treads for legs and a flower for a head. It looks like it's in pain, but it was the only parts I've got that are vaguely compatible with one of my medals. And that's where my frustration is with it at the moment, is trying to make one that isn't shit. Which, again, I think I'll like this more when I've gotten further into it. Because right now, I'm winning new body parts off of the people I fight, and I'm like, oh, I get nothing off of this. If I attach this to what I've got, they will be bad with it. Because what you want is stuff that'll get, a plus amount of extra effectiveness added onto it. The battles are conceptually cool and make me really glad that emulators have fast forwards on them. Conceptually, and I really think with some speeding up and some quality of life modernization, there's a really good battle system here. So you've got your robots, both teams on either side of the screen, and there is a center line in the middle. You give your commands to your robots, and they walk from their starting position to the line and back again. And they're going back and forth, back and forth. Every time they hit the line, they use their attack. When they go back, you give them a new one. So it's this interesting little relay race. Now, the legs they've got on will affect their speed, as will which body part you're using to attack. So you've got your head and your left and your right arms. And each one of those basically has their own signature attack. It's the one thing they do. It's this interesting tactical thing of, if I use this attack, like this cheap little revolver shot, I will potentially hit that guy twice because he's taking a while to get to the middle. So there's this interesting tactical thing of, do I want to take a while to get up there and hit them with something big, or can I fire off enough shots before they reach the middle? All while you have to reckon with the fact that every body part has its own hit points. And once they are down to 0, that body part loses function. So if you're halfway towards that line and you've primed your right arm to shoot and they destroy your right arm, you go up to the line and you do nothing. And then you have to go back. And that's where there is so much potential for this. I find it in its format they've got here interminably slow. It's really slow because not only are you watching them walk up to the line, every time they attack, it goes to an Advance Wars type screen where they show you their attack and then pan the camera across to show the attack landing. And that happens every time. Plus, even the most simple battle is really drawn out. Because you tell the robot what to do, but the robot makes its own decision from there. I.e., what's it gonna hit? Their medals determine where certain attacks will go. Every medal has a preference for what it will target first. So that becomes another part of Essentially, a lot of these battles are won before you have them, because you are building a team of who's covering what, and making sure that you don't over-specialize, and stuff like that. And, will I sacrifice this body part's ability to fire by replacing it with, like, an arm that can make you move faster, or makes your team more accurate, or heals, So there's a lot of potential strategic depth into just putting a robot together, to the point where a lot of these fights, especially where I'm just grinding, I set it to auto. At the beginning of a fight, you can just set the robot to automatically perform, which also can be a tactical thing with a lot of attempts to predict, because they can be programmable. You can set them to do a random thing each turn, or you go into their, like, a little programmy screen, and it's like, turn 1, use your left arm, turn 2, use your left arm, turn 3, use your head, and you can set it to do that, and then set a point in that sequence at which it loops around, so they start doing the same things. I'm genuinely shocked at how much is going on here. Yeah, I had no idea that cartoon I ignored had a game going on that would have me, like, thinking, why is nothing like this happening right now? Why has no one, like, properly modernized this? Because this relay race idea of turn-based battles, combined with the amount of thought you are expected, or certainly the game hopes you put into choosing which robots and which body parts you bring, there's so much potential here that this game, by dint of its age and the fact that there are some questionable design decisions, it doesn't quite live up to what it could be. And like I say, the game is mean-spirited. It's so hard at the beginning. Like, another thing that makes me glad of emulators is their ability to quick save. Because I have grinded, I am levels above stuff, and I could still lose a fight if I'm not lucky. And if the rules of the game are, if you beat someone, you help yourself to a body part. That could include your head, which a Medabot needs in order to function.
Yeah.
And that can happen as early as right near the beginning of the game, where you've only got one. You can get completely fucked in the early goings. And it is why I've been quick saving after every fight, because even though I'm in a position now where I could afford some body part losses, I've only got one of each Meta B part. If they take one of those, I don't know if I'm getting them again. And some of them are really hard to come by. Like, you can fight an enemy a dozen times and not get all 4 of the body parts they're using. You'll get doubles, a lot of the time. Plus, it does do some nasty little things, like, I missed a medal. I actually restarted the game because I tried to get some cheats going to fix it, but I can't get them to work on this game for some reason. It might just be because it's going through RetroArch, and I've not been impressed with RetroArch. But I missed a medal because I opened a treasure chest and a ninja jumped out of it, and I thought, funny, joke's over. I'm going to leave this island I can't go back onto once I leave it, and I haven't been told that, but that's what's going to happen. And then I read, while looking up, like, when do I get my next bloody medal? It was, right, you've got to check the treasure chest again after the samurai comes out of it. I've got to check the open treasure chest. And I can no longer get back onto the island because the boat that took me there moved to a different bit of water. Apparently I could have gotten it if I'd have spent hours and hours and hours playing, like most of the game, without it. But my brain doesn't work like that. It would have bothered me the whole time. So I just sped my way back there. And I still don't have any parts that it's compatible with yet. I'm glad I'm playing it. And I'm glad I'm playing the emulated version and not the original, so that I can, speed it up and everything. I don't know if I'd recommend people, like, oh, you must go play Medabots, you're sleeping on a classic that was unsung. But it's an interesting curio, and the battle system is well worth someone like looking at in a modern context. I really like it. Plus, the designs are really good. I mean, that's clearly why my autism kicked me and went, Steph, guess what you like now? Because that was the thing I always remembered from the cartoon back in the 2000s was that robot looks really cool. That is both cool and adorable. And it's called Metabee, and I don't know why. You don't look like a bee, but it's a cute name. Some of the designs are just straight up fucking weird, but a lot of them are just just appealing. They're exactly Stephanie appealing grade designs. I'm really hoping I can get a mermaid soon. There's a little mermaid one. It looks really cool. So yeah, Medabots, that's what I've been playing, because apparently that's what I'm into now.
Well, I wish the thing from the past that I decided to dive into was as consistently interesting. I have been playing this week a bunch of Yu-Gi-Oh! The Early Days collection.
Oh.
Which is a collection of Yu-Gi-Oh! Video games that largely span from the Game Boy Color to the Game Boy Advance.
Is this a new release?
Yeah, this is a new release. It's on Switch. It's basically a bunch of old, like, ROMs of a bunch of old Yu-Gi-Oh! Games brought together in a little collection.
Right.
And the thing about it is, Yu-Gi-Oh! As a game didn't really have rules for a while when it first came about.
I gathered that from what little I watched of the anime. It really did seem like they were making it up.
Here's the background story for how Yu-Gi-Oh! Came to be, for a little bit of a background lesson. Yu-Gi-Oh! Before the anime that most people in English-speaking territories know, there was people refer to it as Season 0. There was a previous season of the anime that wasn't about Yu-Gi-Oh! The card game. It was about the pharaoh who was a king of games, plural. It was almost more like, weirdly a bit more Saw-esque, in that it was like, some guys tried to rob a bank or something, and like Yugi will catch him and bring him into the Shadow Realm to be like, now we play a game that is put a stack of money on top of your hand and stab through some of the money, and you get to keep what money you stab through, but your greed will make you stab yourself in the hand.
What?
Now you go to the Shadow Dimension.
What? That sounds fucking immense. That sounds great. Why have I not heard of Season 0 of Yu-Gi-Oh?
Yeah, Season 0 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like, the games, quote unquote, are usually, oh, you tried to do a crime, here is like a karmically interesting saw trap I'm gonna put you into. And when you inevitably betray yourself with your, like, evil intentions, that's when you get, like, sent to the flames of hell, because you stabbed through too much of the money and stabbed your hand or whatever.
I got so excited at that idea.
Right? Genuinely, Season 0 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is fascinating. Duel Monsters, the card game, shows up, like, once in Season 0, as, like, one of the games they play is this Magic the Gathering knockoff where, like, the cards are coming to life as you play them. And, like, some of the elements of Yu-Gi-Oh! Are there. Like, Kaiba is, like, the person who, like, the big villain in this who's doing the card game, and some of the elements of Yu-Gi-Oh! Are there. And the thing is, this card game shows up once in Season 0 and then gets way more popular than anything else. And Season 0 starts to morph into being about the card game because the card game is so popular.
I didn't know this. This is genuinely fascinating.
Yeah, so when you see, like, the English language Season 1 of Yu-Gi-Oh!, the reason it seems like they're making the fucking rules up as they go along is they were still working out what the fuck the rules of Yu-Gi-Oh! Were going to be. It's not until you get to the second big arc of the English Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime, Battle City, that it starts really, truly resembling the rules of modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it's sort of catching up with, we have developed a proper rule set for this as a trading card game. So,
I'm just imagining like Basil Fawlty doing this. Like, I've accidentally made a worldwide smash success card game, but it's gonna be okay.
But the point of this is when we get to Yu-Gi-Oh! The Early Days collection, a lot of these early Yu-Gi-Oh! Games are being developed alongside, like, Season 1 of the English anime, where they sort of know what the rules are and the cards are, but, like, it's not 100% solid.
Huh.
Which means that a lot of these early Yu-Gi-Oh! Games have, like, mechanics that do not exist in Yu-Gi-Oh! But do exist in these one-off games. And it's kind of weirdly fascinating. It doesn't make for good games, but it does make for a fascinating lens into watching them try and come up with the rule set of a card game as it's getting popular. So, like, some of the games in this collection will have, like, oh, there's a Pokemon-style type weakness chart, and certain types of monsters can either just automatically beat enemy monsters or get, like, a big damage boost against them. Rules around how many, like, normal summons you can do in a turn, or whether, like, special summoning takes up your summon for the turn, or how tributing works, don't cohesively exist yet. Mix into that a lot of these early Yu-Gi-Oh! Games are really badly balanced, in that you will often be going up against people who have decks that just you don't have any option to go against. It's a weird, confusing mess, but I'm finding it fascinating through the lens of watching them struggle to understand what this game would be. As you get toward the end of the collection, there's a handful of the Game Boy Advance Yu-Gi-Oh! Games that do start to get a much better handle on what Yu-Gi-Oh! As a game is, and those feel a bit more worth the time to put into. One thing I really like, and that would never exist in the modern context because we'd be monetizing the hell out of it, in some of these, particularly some of the later ones, for like the Game Boy Advance ones, you can get any real-world Yu-Gi-Oh! Card that was available at the point this game came out in your in-game collection by typing in an 8-digit code that was at the bottom of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card.
Oh, that's cute. I love stuff like that.
Yeah. So the idea was, if you're buying physical cards, you can type in your codes off your physical cards and get them in the game as well. But in a modern context, it means I can just go look online, what's the code to add this card to the video game? Which has been nice for, like, actually being able to build decent decks. It's been kind of interesting going back to these, mainly from the perspective of, there's a couple of retro formats that exist in Yu-Gi-Oh! At the moment that are basically, like, only use cards that released up until this period in time. And people have done a lot of work on finding, like, decks that no one was playing back in the day, but that are legal and use all cards that existed back in the day to do way better strategies than people were playing at the time in the competitive scene. And it's been nice trying to backport some of that knowledge into one of these old video games and feel a bit overpowered by using modern knowledge about the old state of the game. A lot of the games in here are not worth the time to stick with, and a lot of them are weird little spin-offs, because there was also a while in early Yu-Gi-Oh! Where they were trying to launch spin-off games that just did not take off, like Dungeon Dice Monsters, that never went anywhere. And a lot of those do not explain their rule sets very well. But it's an interesting mess of a collection in terms of exploring a game that very suddenly pivoted to, this is what the focus is, fuck, we need to come up with rules for this, as catalogued across old games. Anyway, Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0 is well worth a watch. It's weirdly interesting.
No, I love listening to all of that.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating as a historical document.
So what about you, Comrade? What else you been playing this week?
I played a game that came out on Steam this week, which, you know, based on the title, you might think wouldn't be my bag. It's called Roguelite Deck Builder. And as you might expect, it is a deck builder that has some light rogue mechanics applied to it.
Oh, God, I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, tell me it's a first-person shoot. Oh, it's a
Now, I will say, it is first-person. And I don't know, I might take issue a little bit with the roguelite part of the description of the title, because it's really more clicker-like in terms of its mechanics. But I see why they went with this title. The way the game works is you have boards that you are placed down atop a frame for a deck, and you have a hand with a nail holding it and a hand that holds a hammer, and you position the hand over one of the corners of the board, and click with your mouse, and then that puts you in a zoomed in view where you now, moving the mouse, control the right hand holding the hammer, and you want to raise the hammer up and bring it down so that it hits the nail and drives it into the board. And you want to be careful to not hit your hand in this process, so you want to be accurate, but you also want to move with purpose and have a clean follow through. Because of the way the scoring system in the game works, you score points every time you get a perfect hit on a nail, and 3 perfect hits should drive a nail straight in through a board. And so once you've finished with a nail, you move on to the next corner of the board and proceed with the same process of putting the nail in place and then hammering it in. Over time, there are some other elements that get introduced. Occasionally, you'll get a special plank that has a big cash bonus if you can complete it quickly. It has a little timer ticking down reflecting the amount of money that it's worth. Sometimes you will get a special nail that appears that will talk to you, and some of them really seem to enjoy being hammered in. You'll have others that are like, hey, hit me in lightly. And so a perfect for them is not actually the big full follow through, but a light tap. You'll get glass nails that are also in this vein. And if you can perfectly pound in a nail completely and do that repeatedly, it creates a multiplier that increases the amount of money that you get for every perfect hit and every perfect nail. Once you've completed building a deck, you're brought back into the lobby of your house to talk to your husband, which is a skeleton that seems to be missing some of the parts of its model. Like the upper arm is missing, but the lower arm is present. It has a halo. And it, congratulates you on your success at deck building and encourages you to build another deck. And then there's a shop where you can make purchases to increase the value of every strike and the likelihood that you hit perfectly, and increases the likelihood that insects will crawl around on the board and you can smash them for extra bonus money. And the goal is to eventually work up to having the $1 million necessary to purchase the key to your freedom. And that's Roguelite Deck Builder. It's not bad. It's $3 on Steam, and it is that is exactly the right price for this joke.
Yeah.
But actually, it is. There's something to it, I will say. I wouldn't talk about it if there wasn't something to it. There is a certain practiced fluidity to raising and lowering the hammer that is incredibly satisfying to get right, I will say. But it's weird and unsettling and very basic and runs just as long as it needs to not outstay its welcome. This is a decent joke game, Roguelite Deck Builder.
It sounds like they hit the right balance, because it can be hard with a joke game. Because I've always said, a lot of joke games should have began and ended at the trailer, because that's where the joke began and ended.
Right.
For them to actually sort of bring it out and do more with it, and like you say, have it run just long enough at just the right price point, that does sound good.
Yeah, it's an interesting little thing that is worth taking a look at.
Speaking of taking a look at something, I kind of want people to get an idea of what I'm talking about, but in order for them to look at it, I would recommend they go to the opticians and ask them for those little black plastic wraparound visors they give you after you have an eye test. The game's called Metal Bringer. It was done by the same folks that did Samurai Bringer, which came out some time ago. And I'd heard about that game because it had been compared to Dynasty Warriors. And I'd always thought there weren't really any indie games doing that kind of thing. And that game, I respected what it was going for, but it was also just weird. It had this weird thing where you build your own movesets by putting attack commands together, and it was really poorly explained, and I could tell the game was good, but the mechanics were explained so badly that it put me off. But I gave this one a chance because it sounded interesting. They had another sort of idea of building stuff, but funnily enough, it's actually similar conceptually to Medabots in terms of how you're creating something. The actual game is like a roguelike action game, part shooter, part hack and slash, and that really does depend on how you build your robot, because that's what you're doing. You are building robots out of body parts. Some of them can be giant chainsaw arms or big missile launchers, stuff like that. You can swap body parts on the fly throughout a run as you destroy robots. Conceptually, all good stuff, and the customization options are extensive. The amount of things you can change the color of is exactly my kind of level of changing the color of things, as in to say, you can change the color of loads of stuff. The problem is this game really likes color, and it really hates smooth edges, and it likes a lot of different colors, all happening at the same time, with a lot of bright clashing effects and a lot of jaggy, harsh filters. Now, because what I am about to say would be an incredibly, in my opinion, serious accusation, I am not going to say that game gave me a migraine yet. All I can say is, within 10 minutes of playing that game for the first time, a migraine had started. Now, I'm so migraine prone that one could just be bad timing, but it felt directly caused by what I was playing. Because as I started playing, I was like, wow, this is searing my eyeballs, and it is making them feel strained. I have been not keen to go back since, because I can't afford to be laid low by migraines any more than I currently am. It happens a lot. It takes hours out of my life. But if this game is legit causing me migraines, which will not have happened since this awful horror game that was on the first PlayStation VR headset, that would be a very serious thing that I don't think gets brought up enough with games. Because, you know, flashing lights, epilepsy, that's thankfully taken at least seriously enough to come with warnings, and most media has realised it's not worth it. It's not worth having your strobe effects when you don't need them. As far as stuff that could cause migraines goes, it's not really talked about. But certainly as I've gotten older, I've had to be more careful with the stuff I'm looking at because of what it could do. And I hadn't even really considered that until I played Metal Bringers, and within 10 minutes had to go to bed because I was in pain. And I got really angry at it. And again, with just that one instance, I don't want to say that was a definite cause and effect. It felt like it.
I think there is something to be said for, you know your body best, and sometimes you do just kind of know that a game has fucked you up in a way that is hard to quantify. Like, I know for me, the example I think about a lot is a game called Golem for the original PSVR that irreversibly fucked up my sense of motion sickness and made me way more motion sickness prone forever going forward.
Jeez.
It was a game I was trying to review for Polygon, and it's the only time I've ever had to go back to an editor and go, I need to stop playing this game you are commissioning me to review. I can review it with where I'm at. This is not a me problem. I can explain to you why the game is causing this to happen to me. I have to review it without playing any more of it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just know, you can feel in the moment, it feels pretty certain that this game has done this thing.
Yeah. And that's, that's what happened with me and that other, because I had the same thing with a VR game. I can't even remember what it was called. It was some weird horror game about, I think they were like half human, half animal hybrids. The thing knocked me fucking sick, caused massive amounts of agony, and people thought I was being unfair to the game when I reviewed it poorly. But that is an interesting thing to consider, because I think it's very fair for you to, in a review, Laura, say, this thing caused permanent damage.
Yeah.
That deserves to be brought up. And as I'm looking at this Metal Bringers thinking, so I got it because I thought it might be cute, and I want to do, I like doing my indie game reviews. But when I went to bed that night with a searing headache, I was like, okay, so I know I'd never want to touch that again. But I do feel like if that thing does demonstrably cause me migraines, I should be able to stop and put out a review and say, yeah, in my professional opinion, this game caused me physical harm.
I am a big advocate of, if you can verbalize what the game was doing that led to the result, and to go, I get migraines typically because of these reasons, and this game was doing these things, and it sure seems to have been a large contributing factor, I do not feel safe going back to the game because of my, and as long as you acknowledge this will not be the case for everyone, but this is the experience I had with it, I think it's totally valid to have that relationship with the game in review and say, I could not keep playing it because of the impact it seemed to have on my migraines.
Yeah. And I'm going to have to go back and double check to see if there were any warnings at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because, you think about some other games, like Vampire Survivors,
Yeah.
That game does things. Eye-searing things. As someone who is very migraine prone, I have never had a migraine off the back of it. Obviously, I have my biases being involved with it. But I can at least say there are warnings, certainly from an epilepsy point of view at the beginning. Again, I don't want to make ironclad things here, but I played it. I don't remember seeing any warnings. And as well as epilepsy warnings, I do wonder if we need to start looking at things like migraine warnings as well for stuff. Because it doesn't get thought about much. And more to the point, it's fucking ugly. Like, I'm a big fan of garish clashing colours. I don't mind that aspect so much. But they've done it in such a way that at times it's incomprehensible what's going on. Everything is some form of it looks like it would be a pattern on a set of dungarees sold in the 90s. It's that level of contrast and saturation and vivid bright greens, pinks, blues, yellows. At times, the colour palette is very pretty, but it's all done through this thing where I think it's got a thing similar to what mouthwashing did, where there's a filter making everything look more pixely than the models actually are. I could be wrong, but it's got that same kind of feel. Whether it's baked into the models or it's a filter doesn't really matter. What matters is the jagginess and the artifacting that's all over this makes it ugly as sin. And it shouldn't be ugly, because I can see through it, through this miasma of eye-searing colour and jaggy effects and filters and numbers and things just getting in the way. I think there's some good character designs in there. It's really hard to say, because everything they've laid on top of the models is an active detriment to it. There are moments like there's a little home base and an in-game shop where all of the many things that are on screen are gone, and it's just you and these little cute little robot guys, and they look good. Again, the filtering makes them look uglier than they should be, but design-wise, they're cute. And then you go out into that world, and it's just it's obnoxiousness piled on top of what I think is some good art direction. that has been absolutely avalanched under bad art direction. And it's a shame. And the music is not good either. It's similar. It's not so much the artistry, but how they've communicated it. The tunes are fine. They sound like they're being played on a ZX Spectrum, but not in a fun, stylized, look, it sounds a bit like games from the old days kind of vibe. It's, oh god, didn't the Spectrum sound fucking awful vibe? That's the thing. Somewhere in there's a good game, I think. The moments when there's just enough on screen that I can still tell what's going on, it seems quite good, at least when I'm using projectiles. The melee weapons are slow and sluggish and not satisfying. But when you're just a little pair of legs with a tank for a head just popping stuff off, that could be quite cool. But yeah, they've made a lot of decisions with this game that I think have fucked it. Which is a shame.
Yeah. I had a couple other things I've played, but neither of them are particularly important to talk about, so we can jump ahead to newsy bits. Conrad, do you want to talk about Saudi Arabia?
Oh no, I don't want to talk about Saudi Arabia, but they've left us with
nor does
not
Triple
a lot
H.
This is more of a public service announcement than anything.
Yeah.
So Pokemon Go as a product, and I would assume all of its associated assets, this is really a bit unclear what has been transacted here. But Niantic has sold this and two other apps, Campfire and Wayfarer, to basically a new company that is owned by Saudi Arabia, by the Saudi investment fund that has been worming its way into every entertainment industry in the United States for a decade now. So they may have your data now, and that's not great. You know, now we don't know the extent of that or what it means or anything like that, but the public service announcement that I want to make is delete the shit off your phones. Stop signing up with apps. So, for a long time now, I have limited my phone's usage to essentially making phone calls, sending text messages on Signal, and unfortunately mapping, which I am doing through Google, and I'm not crazy about that. The data collection stuff is never going to be reined in for the United States, ever. So get off. And if you're in Europe and some places where you have some rudimentary data protections to you, avail yourself of them. You can complain and get the data removed. It's a fucking process. It's a pain in the ass, but you should do it. Try to remove yourself from these ecosystems as much as you possibly can, because they're destroying us.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Other fun news. Yeah. Other fun news we had this week.
I do have just one quick newsy bit to slide in.
Yeah.
Yeah. The news I have is that Laura just sent me some panels of Yu-Gi-Oh! Doing saw traps, and they're fucking amazing.
Oh, yeah. I sent you the one of the man holding a gun at Yugi, but he's pouring vodka, and there's a lighter trapped on his hand.
He's trying to balance the trigger on the back of his hand while pouring vodka.
So if he pulls the trigger, the recoil will make the lighter drop and he'll set himself on fire.
Fucking brilliant.
Right? I fucking told you it's saw trap shit.
That position. Oh, it's so good.
Okay. To explain my this is like memory of having watched this a few years ago. I think the concept of the game was both of us will try and kill each other by using a single finger. We can only use a single finger to activate whatever it is that's going to kill the other. So, like, the guy with the gun, he's like, my trigger finger, I'm going to use that to fire the gun. Cool, what's your thing? My thing is I'm going to use my thumb to spark the lighter. Like, that's my one finger I'm using. Oh no, I've trapped you in a position where you can't kill me without killing yourself.
This is hardcore.
This is what Yu-Gi-Oh was before the card game. This is what Yu-Gi-Oh was.
Yeah.
The card game was just a one-off thing that came up once and got weirdly popular.
All I ever really know of the anime, because whenever it was on TV, it was always the one episode that was on, was a guy who loved caterpillars. That's all I remember, was this fucking little nerd who liked caterpillars. If I'd have known that it started off as fucking Saw, I'd have been so into it.
There's one I vaguely remember where there's a watch thief and he's trying to steal watches. He's got like 15 watches up his arm.
I'm sorry, you said arm. I know you said arm, but you started with the R and I finished it mentally. Go on.
But like his punishment is like his body starts the watches go under his skin and start, like, popping out random parts of his skin, and he becomes, like, a weird watch homunculus.
What?
Like, Season 0 Yu-Gi-Oh! Is wild.
Oh, mate. This genuinely, like, obviously I'm giddy because it's Yu-Gi-Oh! And Saw as a thing, but it genuinely sounds good as well.
It's children's Saw, and it's poorly paced, and it's not always great, but I love that it exists. Anyway, yeah, we had a couple of other newsy bits. A clip leaked in the past week of PlayStation fucking around with AI, and specifically, some member of staff somewhere at PlayStation having a conversation with a AI voice operated and like large language model fed model of Aloy, the main character from Horizon Forbidden West and Zero Dawn, which, if you've played the Horizon games, there's not a worse character you could have fucking picked to make your AI model out of, given that game's themes of, hey, maybe be a little concerned about handing up for too much control of the planet to AI.
It's almost like executives have no respect for the art they profit from.
Right.
Laura, we have to build the Torment Nexus,
We have to build the Torment Nexus. Who will do it if we don't? Unsurprisingly, Ashley Birch, who voices Aloy, has seen that clip and was not best pleased about it.
No.
There's more to it, but a couple of quick quotes. I saw the tech demo earlier this week. She says she'd been in contact with Horizon developers at Guerrilla who said that the demo didn't reflect anything that was actively in development. And like they went on the defensive going, oh, we didn't use any of Ashley Birch's performance for the demo, none of your facial data or voice data. They say that. It is her face they're making say these things.
Yeah.
And she clarifies, like, I feel worried. Not worried about Guerrilla specifically, or Horizon, or my performance, or my career specifically. I feel worried about this art form. Mm-hmm. I'm like, yep. This is one of those steps that, like, yeah, sure, maybe they're not replacing Ashley Birch in this series with AI right now, but the fact that they were fucking around with it means that, like...
It's a declaration.
Yeah, they weren't opposed to fucking around with the idea.
I've always said that with stuff, because, you know, there are many things throughout the years of me doing this job where I've looked at things that they were just talking about, or it's just a pattern, it's just an idea. And that's not the point. The point isn't whether it exists right now. The point we always need to remember is they had those conversations. It's bad enough that they're willing to have those conversations. Because if they're willing to talk about it, that means they're willing to do it.
Yeah. Couple of other bits we got. This should go without saying, this is the most, like, yeah, no shit statement I've seen this week. The head of the company that makes Roblox, Dave Bazuki, has said, if parents are not comfortable about children's safety, they shouldn't let them play Roblox.
Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
That is true. I agree with what they are saying. I do think that maybe it should be cause for some self-reflection when the majority of your users are children.
Well, that's it, yeah, like, it's not an exoneration of, if you think we're dangerous, then don't expose us to your children. Like,
well, but it's these over-concerned parents think it's a problem, and it's,
Yeah, so here's the thing. We'll dig into this a little more. This came out of an interview with BBC News, and he says, my first message would be, if you're not comfortable, don't let your kids be on Roblox, is where he starts. I do, look, for all of my fucking problems with the BBC, I do respect some of the pushback they did in this interview. So let me find the specific bit. So, Roblox has some stuff in place that, in theory, requires, like, parental access, and children under 13 can't access, quote, user behavior that can potentially pose a risk. And, like, this is Roblox's defenses. Well, under 13s shouldn't be able to access stuff that they shouldn't be. The BBC pointed out that accounts that are listed as under 13 were able to access such experiences as Late Night Boys and Girls Club roleplay and Special Forces Simulator. So, well done BBC for pointing out, like, when Roblox tried to go, like, no, you gotta be over 13, if you're under 13 you can't, you won't see any things you shouldn't. Nah, there's shit that is not safe for children that can be accessed by accounts that are definitively under 13, continues to make the point, don't fucking trust Roblox, don't let your kids be on it, it's bad shit. And we got one more. Let's talk about Ubisoft having to create an anti-harassment plan for their staff to protect staff from getting harassed when Assassin's Creed Shadows comes out.
I fucking hate this story. I hate so much that it's Ubisoft that is, actually demonstrating this any level of concern for the safety and well-being of their employees. I don't agree with telling them not to talk, but to actually, like, recognize that this is a problem. It's a shame they can't recognize the problems in their own fucking house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also a shame that companies exhibited none of this care when Gamergate first kicked off 10 years ago, and they all stood idly by and watched the seeds of all this get planted.
Yeah. This could have been stopped a long time ago, but here we are.
Yeah. I agree with you, Comrade. I'm not a big fan of the part of this which is they advise staff, don't say that you worked on the game. You're not allowed. We're telling you not to proudly say you worked on a thing.
God forbid you need to find a job somewhere else.
Yeah, as someone who has perhaps worked on things in the past and been told not to say exactly what I did on things, because we're looking out for you, it limits your ability to say what you did in ways that helps you get future work.
Yeah.
But, I respect that they are aware of and acknowledging, hey, the fucking worst people on the internet are about to get really fucking shitty about our game because it's got a woman and a black man in it. We should probably at least try and put some steps in place to look after people who work here.
So they went to the Canadian authorities, I guess, and they've got some sort of dragnet looking for social media posts that are threats for potential suits, I guess, is the strategy, right?
Yeah, that seems to be it, which I don't know how much that's going to actually do in practical terms, but it's better than not fucking trying, I'll give them that. It's more than a lot of companies I've worked for have done when this shit's been on the horizon.
Just the acknowledgement that it is a problem prior to the release of the product is illustrative of a pretty significant change in thinking around this, which gives me hope. It's just that it's Ubisoft doing it.
And honestly, and it is, like, when I first heard this talked about, I genuinely thought, before I heard the rest of the headline, genuinely thought it was Ubisoft is putting in a program to protect Ubisoft workers from Ubisoft. Genuinely. I thought things had gotten so bad there that they were making gestures of, we have a thing in place to protect you from the people in our company who are abusers. Having seen what it actually is, yeah, the fact is Ubisoft being the one to do this is fucking rich. But this is how you stop this in the end. Yep. This is how you curb these nerds is enough of the publishers, the ones who are the most insulated and protected, but with the most power to do something, making it clear that the nerdses are not welcome and protecting people from them.
The people who've got the money and resources to dedicate to getting the numbers of people out there that need to be out there to report shit so that, like, the people going through it don't have to see it.
And just sending the message, we're not going to hand wring and make apologies to the... or do anything to lend credence to the fake controversies you people stir up. Sidestep that bullshit. Focus on the harassment element of it. That's a big part of taking the fun out of it for the nerds, because a lot of this for them is just fun. You know, a lot of them don't really care about games. They're just here to hurt people. And if enough game publishers at the top level, at the mainstream level, send the message that we're not playing back to you, I think that is a huge step towards killing this. Just killing this awful routine that they have now. And it is a routine. And that's part of what will make it easier to tackle. They're not complicated creatures, our nerdses. And they've spent, the past 2 years now, they've gotten their routine down with every new game release to a strict, regimented timetable of events. It is so easy now for publishers to anticipate what they're going to do and how they're going to do it, because they are that predictable, that mechanical.
Uncreative and incurious people typically are.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think this is a positive step forward, whether it's Ubisoft or anyone doing it. The companies, the publishers, have to send the message that they are not going to patronize any of this anymore.
This shit is not going to move the needle on the games they're making.
Yeah, like, they have to be taught that their tantrum is not going to get them what they want. I deal with kids that have, like, tantrums all the time. And the only way you deal with it is to have a stoic face that just says no. And that's what these nerds need. They need to start respecting the word no. And they're not going to respect it from anyone but brand TM. Once the brands start telling them, no, you're not welcome here, we agree with our fucking employees. I think that goes, not all, obviously, you know, it's not going to stop fascism or anything, but it will certainly cut off the arm that they've been trying to wrap round video games.
Exactly. Right. I think that's everything we got for this week.
Okay. Well, Laura.
Me?
You did stuff. I know you did. Don't make me put a lighter on the back of your hand and threat you into telling us what you've done this week and where people can hear it and see it.
Oh god, I'd better tell you what I did, otherwise when I pull the trigger, the light is gonna fall. Yep. Oh no! You can find me at Laura K. Buzz pretty much everywhere. Hey, $1 a month over on Patreon allows me to keep doing this stuff while certain companies find legal ways to not pay me for my work, so that'd be great if you want to go support me over there. We are almost done with Abletop, the 6-week series of board game accessibility videos that I've been doing with Carrie Waterton. By the time this goes up, episode 5 will be out, which is about communication accessibility. And then next week is our last one, where we are doing a little grab bag of accessibility concepts that didn't neatly fit into the 5 previous sort of category episodes we did. So go check that out. Super proud of that series. Other than that, just check Laura K. Buzz. You'll find all the stuff I'm doing. What have I got going out? If you check youtube.com/Laura K. Buzz, by the time this goes out, I will be uploading the final episode of my rewatch and reaction series to Wandering Sun, the 12-episode anime that I watched 15 years ago and came out as trans that same night. I finally finished my journey back through that kind of messy and not always great, but I can definitely see why it meant what it did to me show. What about you, Conrad? Where are you out on the internet?
Oh, you can find me at Conrad Zimmerman on Blue Sky. You can hang out with me on Twitch at twitch.tv/thatconradzimmerman. I'm on Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays. You can buy anti-capitalist propaganda and Jimquisition merchandise at mercenarycreative.com. Some new shirts in there. The Get Good shirts are shipping. Yes, Commander shirts are in. Go check all that out. And everything that I do online gets supported through Patreon at patreon.com/fistshark. And you know who else has a Patreon? Stephanie Sterling.
Oh, that's so true. Patreon.com/Jimquisition, which is where you'll be able to support this show and the video series and the reviews on thejimquisition.com. There is currently a review for Centum up on the website. Hoping to do one for Suikoden 1 and 2 HD remasters. There might be one on that fucking Metal Bringer as well. We'll see. Other than that, I stream, which I've been a bit low on streams lately just because, well, a lot of those migraines I was talking about, but that's at twitch.tv/Jim Sterling. That's it. Should hopefully have some news on some of the games I've been working on coming soon. But that'll have to wait for now. Until then, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.